It's the Score North Twin Show.
All right, Score North Extra Innings live from Progressive Field for my wrestling fans. In my Gene Snitsky voice, it wasn't my fault. It was not my fault for this sweep. That's a deep cut for my mid-2000s wrestling fans. The Twins' losing streak reaches 6 games. They are swept by the Cleveland Guardians. Get your brooms out. They were swept against the Yankees. They were swept here in Cleveland. Now they go to Washington, where the Twins haven't won a baseball game in over a week. Declan Goff, AJ Frederickson here on the Score North Twin Show YouTube channel. You can hit that like button, subscribe button, help spread the word, even though the Twins are losing. We had to deal with this before. We're not slowing down, so hit the like button, subscribe button for plenty of Minnesota Twins content here on Extra Innings. You can expect content from most home games, select road games as well. But yeah, Age, another offenseless series for the Twins here today. It got wacky in the ninth, an absolute some of the wackiest things I've ever seen on a baseball field played out on the top and bottom of the ninth that we can get into a little bit later. But they wasted a incredible start from Chris Paddack, who gives up, a single and a bomb to start the game, but then was legitimately on cruise control the rest of it. And that's what I think stands out is some of these pitching performances they have gotten. It hasn't all been pretty. I mean, Bailey Ober got knocked around pretty good yesterday, but you cannot waste these starting pitching opportunities. And I think once again, we're mostly talking about the same things that plagued this team at the beginning of the year, which is hitting overall, and probably the bigger one, timely hitting. The Twins fail to get timely hits. 5 double plays they grounded into today. They left a bunch on base over this series. It was a rough one out there.
Yeah, and how many times have you I've seen you kind of preach and bring up on this show, which is like they need a starting pitcher to go a solid 7 innings. They got to give the bullpen maybe a day off. And Chris Paddack, credit to him, bounces back after a pretty rough performance the last time out against the Yankees, if my memory serves me correctly. And he, despite that early kind of flaw, goes 8 innings, 8 relatively solid innings against a division rival. This is a team that you should be able to take advantage at this point, but then the bats just aren't there. The bats must have stayed back at Target Field this series because it was a rough weekend. And I'm sure if you're a Guardians fan watching, you're like, this is perfect. This kind of sets the tempo for the rest of the year. We now kind of have that stranglehold over the Twins mentally and in the standings. But to see 8 innings by Chris Paddack kind of get cast out the window, you need a little bit of little league ball in the 9th inning to tie things up, and then a 3-run shot off your lockdown closer. Just it's kind of disheartening. It's going to make for a tough plane ride, I would imagine, out to Washington. Just letting that thing stew for a day, that's not going to feel good. So when you get those outings, Chris Paddack did his job. The bats need to step up. The bats need to be able to just create a little offense here. And is Tanner Beebe great? No. But is he bad? No, he's not. Like, this is a guy that you should be able to hit around. I think he's got like a mid-4 ERA. So like caliber level pitching wise, based on paper, kind of the same matchup in terms of what Chris Paddack has been doing for the Twins. But if you need that type of offense where they're like Emmanuel Clase is dropping a ball that should pretty much end the game, something's wrong. And so they're going to have to reconsider where they're at, rework some things. They're just getting a new headspace. When they had that big run, I mean, you could see that they were swinging a little more smoothly. The ball was just popping a little bit better because they had that confidence. And now you get swept 2 series in a row. It's a little disheartening. We'll have to see how they bounce back here against Washington.
And look, Cleveland has a history of just really developing and cultivating great pitching, almost kind of out of thin air with how they've scouted these guys and developed these guys. But they had 3 straight games that were very winnable. I mean, Tristan McKenzie has had a tough time throwing strikes. I think he had maybe exactly 50% strike rate on Friday. Logan Allen is probably their lowest guy on the totem pole in their rotation. The Twins couldn't hit him at all. And then today, Tanner Bybee probably has better stuff than those 2, but the Twins could not get a timely hit to save their lives. They put runners on second with no outs twice in this game. Can't bring them home. Striking out, popping up, just not the timely hitting that you need. I asked Rocco about that too, because, and I'm certainly not defending the Twins offense, but there was probably 5 or 6 balls throughout the course of this series that had high exit velos, high expected batting average rates that were just made by Cleveland's defense. And they made incredible plays. They turned 5 double plays over the course of this series. And Rocco touched on it. Certainly, you're probably not going to see a team be able to accomplish all of that defensively in one series. That is true. At the end of the day, you're leaving the runners on base, and we, as the Twins, have to find a better way to put better at-bats together and bring in these runners. So the fact that they had 3 pitchers that I think were honestly all very beatable from Cleveland's rotation, and now all of a sudden you're looking up at the stands where I think this time last week, Age, they were just a half game back. Now I believe they're 5.5 back. So like that just goes to show how quickly things can change in a baseball season. Yes, it's May 19th. Yes, it's a long year. But at the same time, the hitting, the offense, which has been, I believe, the worst in baseball over the last 7 days from an average and OPS standpoint, continues to really cost them games. The offense has been its biggest problem. It hasn't been starting pitching like people thought. Yes, Duran, which we can get into here just a bit, had 2 losses in this series, which is uncharacteristic. But at the same time, the offense is the biggest chunk of pie of why the Twins got swept again.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just throw a quick question at you, but when do you expect, if any, to see some sort of jumble with the order here? Eddie Julien, he's nearing 150 at-bats on the season so far. The guy's batting 210. This is your leadoff guy. Like, this is the guy you expect to set the tempo. And if he's going out there getting a hit 1 out of every 5 at-bats, to me, that doesn't sound like a leadoff guy, Declan. So I don't know if it just doesn't. So no. I don't know if that's something that Rocco has maybe talked about, or I know kind of around the early struggles in the season, you and Rocco had a discussion about, kind of mixing and matching, trying some new things and getting a new look to the batting order. Could you expect Julien to get bumped out of that leadoff spot for somebody else?
Well, he did that earlier this year. He put him in what Rocco said, the blender, shook him up, put him in the 2-hole, and it worked for a little bit. It ended up working really well for them. And then eventually he moved him back to the leadoff spot. I think here's the thing with Eddie Julien. He's a guy that we all know will not chase a lot of pitches. He will take strike 3. And some of that, I think, is for a couple reasons. He doesn't want to adjust a swing pattern and adjust a swing tendency that he has been doing his entire career. So it makes it tough that a lot of fans see, hey, strike 3 looking is on Edward Julien. I think 2 things. He doesn't know how to change up his swing, and he probably doesn't really know how to flick off those pitches, or even, obviously, the most important part, drop in those baseballs for base hits. So although Julien, I think, can work a count and eventually will probably start walking a little bit more, but he, I think, is actually maybe a little bit more limited from an offensive and hitting side than probably we thought. And, Age, the baseball leadoff hitter has morphed like crazy over the last 10 years, right? Like the Ben Revere's, the Juan Pierre's, Denard Span was calling the games here today. That true low slugging percentage, high OBP, speedy type of player is gone from baseball. Like it just doesn't exist. For God's sakes, I think Denard Span's last year in the bigs in 2018, he still hit 270 and no one called him. Like no one called him because he just didn't fit the mold in today's baseball. So, Julian's been struggling. The entire lefty of the orders have been awful the last week. And the Twins really can't afford, with a lefty heavy lineup with Julian's, Kirilloff, Trevor Larnach's in there too. They can't afford for those guys not to be all going. One of them, it's baseball. Someone's going to struggle. All 3 of them struggling, that is a huge problem because this lineup is basically based on its left-handed arsenal of power and offense. And all 3 of those guys have struggled.
Yeah, so maybe the blame is not solely there because, like you said, as much as I would love a guy that can go up there and you're not necessarily flipping a coin because that's asking way too much, but you have a significant feeling in your gut like, okay, he's going to probably do something here that benefits the team, and that's just maybe what I'm lacking. But it is a group effort, and that's what we've seen here over these past 2 series is. The car was running fine, and now they're just on the side of the highway, kind of thumb out, like, hey, somebody pick us up. Who's going to be the truck that comes along and gets this offense back going? I don't know. It's going to be hopefully somebody here as they head out to Washington, because if they stall out much longer, it's all that progress that you've made back up now. You were nipping at the heels of the Guardians this series, and especially the one against the Yankees. I mean, that's a lot of tough losses where it's such a big swing in the standings where it feels like you just made your trek up the stairs and now, hey, you're 2 flights lower. They're taking the elevator and you're trying to walk upstairs on crutches. So it's maybe that's a better metaphor than anything, because this team has been so hurt this season. So
on Jhoan Duran, who took 2 losses in this series, very uncharacteristic of Duran. He's obviously their lights out closer. He's their highest leverage pitcher. Sounded like today on the home run ball, I believe, to Brennan that walked off this thing. It was a curveball, I believe that was called, and he wanted a fastball. Duran did. He didn't take it. And I think both those pitches that he's given up for bombs against Ramirez, and then I believe Brennan today, were all curveballs. So, yes, Duran, I think, has flame-throwing stuff and probably needs to rely on that stuff a little bit more. But I wouldn't panic too much on Duran. Look, relievers eventually are going to, unfortunately, blow games. Emmanuel Clase made a defensive mistake today that nearly cost Cleveland the game. Like going into the 8th, when they had to go into Gaddis and Clase, I'll be doom and gloomer here. I'll be my Judd Zulgad. I'll be my sports dad. That I thought this game was wrapped up, because when you're going from Gaddis into Clase, 95% of the time, more likely, you're going to win those games. And Clase makes just this weird blunder at first and extends the lead. We talked to Byron Buxton in the post game, because he gets put in as a pinch runner that ends up scoring there. And I asked, did you try to bait him to throw to third? I mean, but there's probably 1 or 2 baseball players in all of MLB that can do what Byron Buxton did in that sequence to get all the way home. He said, like, obviously I wasn't trying to be the third out. So, whether he was going to throw home, or whether he was going to go to third, I was just trying not to be the last out. But Buxton coming off the bench, giving them a spark with obviously his legs, was huge. Just, you can't close the deal. Like I will say, even though this would have been an ugly game, winning is winning, obviously, in baseball. So if they were able to get this win in the ugliest fashion, the Twins would have taken it and ran with it, and obviously would have celebrated on the plane. But there are still a lot of things that have to be cleaned up. And the Twins haven't won a game in a week. So the vibes, again, are just they're a little stinky. I think that's the exact words Rocco used yesterday. The vibes are a little stinky.
I mean, let's get some Febreze in that locker room then. Like, is there who can be the air freshener that can, clear out that scent? Is it just, rolling the windows down and turning the AC up to full blast? Or is it, a fresh face? Is there somebody that they can call up who hasn't been getting a lot of time in the field or in the lineup that can maybe just provide some type of spark? You can't let the garbage sit too long. Garbage day is once a week. If you let that dumpster build up, guess what? It's going to be overflowing. You're going to get mold. You're going to have to clean out the dumpster. It's going to sound terrible. It's going to feel terrible. It's going to smell terrible. You got to get the garbage out at some point. So whether or not it's a fresh face, whether it's changing mechanics, whether it's, to Rocco's point, putting them in a blender again, turn it up to diced. We can chop them. Let's dice them. Let's puree at some point. Somebody get this lineup going. 6 games in a row now. We cannot be falling flat. Timely hits are one thing, but just not doing anything, leaving guys on base game after game, putting yourself behind the 8 ball is just so frustrating. Not for just you and I here watching the team, but Twins fans. I mean, when it comes to also the ongoing TV situation, you have people tuning in or trying to, at least, and they're like, okay, they just hear time after time. This team, hey, they left another guy. They left 2 guys on here. Strikeout to end the inning. The guy left on third. Can't get it all. They need little league, antics in the 9th. It's credit to Byron Buxton for making something happen there, but it's really frustrating. We're getting back to a point where they seemed like they were getting back on track, and now the train is off the rails again.
Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is Score North Extra Innings. You can expect content from just about every Twins home game. You can expect content on the road. Trevor Plouffe joins us on Tuesday. Mackie Judd and myself have full episodes usually sprinkled throughout the week too. Star power has been killing the Twins too, opposing star power. Aaron Judge was murdering baseballs against them at Target Field to end that last homestand. Jose Ramirez willed this team to a win on Friday night. He leads off Saturday with a bomb too. This is my first time ever coming to Progressive Field as a fan, or obviously I was in the press box and covering the series. This place is loud, dude. Like this place gets crazy and loud. They had a sellout yesterday. It was the first May sellout here at Progressive Field since 2011. So like this Guardians fan base showed up. It was awesome. It was kind of cool to experience, I will say, just to hear it and walking around this humongous ballpark. But Aaron Judge earlier this week, Jose Ramirez this week. We'll see if the Nationals, who are actually a little more feisty, I think, than people thought, but we'll see if the Nationals are going to be able to, deliver some of the star power that has killed the Twins, but that them not being able, the Twins, that is, not being able to slow down, some of these teams' best players has also played a huge factor in them not being able to close out games and not being able to rack up wins. And instead they have a 6-game losing streak.
And I'm just looking through I'm not as well versed with the Nationals as maybe some people may be. I know they kind of got the cheese knocked out of them, so to speak, against the Phillies here today, but who on that lineup is going to be the Twins killer? Like, is it going to be CJ Abrams? Is it going to be Kybert Ruiz, who's batting 152? Like, somebody's going to just go nuclear for no reason. At this point, as much as you want to say that you should have the expectation that this team can walk into Washington and take the next couple of games, no problem. Right now, I don't feel that way. Like, we're on shaky ice, I feel like. And if they had kept some of the momentum and maybe picked up a scrappy win against the Yankees, or if you get swept, you take 1 of 3 against the Guardians, so you can at least salvage a little something, like some sliver of hope. Right now, I feel like they're going to go in there and it's going to be a gritty, grindy, like, to dive bar type situation where you just really don't know. Is there going to be a guy in the shadows, drinking a Coors Light that's kind of, he's going to follow you out to the parking lot. You don't know what's going to happen. Or are they going to go in there, walk over to touch tunes and just, control the night? I think it's going to be the first one. Unfortunately, I think the Nationals are going to probably give them a little more of a hard time than they probably want it to be. And that's just because of the struggles they have internally right now. It's, who's gonna step up? I don't think there's really a person on this Nationals roster that I'm necessarily like scared of for the Twins. Yeah. But it seems like it's set up in a way somebody's gonna rise to the occasion and just go, somebody's gonna look like an Aaron Judge for the next couple of days for whatever reason. That's just the gut feeling I have.
I don't know if they'll be in the lineup, but I mean the Nationals do have former friends Joey Gallo and Eddie Rosario. Still, I believe, on their roster. Right. So there are a couple old friends there. Yeah, I mean, CJ Abrams is having a pretty good season for them. But hey, maybe this is also, to your point, Age, with maybe the lack of star power. And the Nats are 4 games under 500. They maybe are, again, out kicking their coverage from a record standpoint. But maybe this is a perfect team to maybe get right against. I think the Twins will get 2 of their 3 lefties out of their rotation. So you're going to have to see, again, that right-handed lineup, which the Twins had to display yesterday, which is not their optimal lineup. But you have to figure out a way to beat up on those left-handed pitchers. We'll see if the Twins are going to be able to do that. They have Patrick Corbin, Mackenzie Gore, Mitchell Parker, the Nationals do. So they have some lefties in that starting rotation. I mean, obviously, first things first, get this damn losing streak out of the way and breathe some life into a club and have a little bit of exhale. But if they can go into Washington, beat up and take 2 out of 3 against a bad Washington team, it just makes life a little bit easier. The fact of these inconsistencies, we've had bookends right here of, horrible start, losing, I believe, 12 of your first 18 games or something like that. Now they have a 6-game losing streak on this bookend. And in the middle, was winning, I think 17 out of 21 or something. So 2 things. The Twins probably have to obviously be somewhere in the middle. Like they're not going to be a team that wins 17 to 21. They are not capable of that. I mean, I know they did it. They're not the 27 Yankees. Like, yes, you can run into some wins here and there, but they're not going to win 12 in a row again. So can you find some consistency? Because as weird as it sounds, like, I think if you would have told me going into the year on May 19th, they'd only be 2 games over 500, but I won't tell you how they got there. I probably would have had a little bit of, that's weird. I mean, they probably are struggling to a degree, but how did they get there? Well, they've gotten there in 2 extremely unique ways. This hasn't been like feistiness where you're chipping and chipping and chipping and you're just a couple games over 500. These have been 2 polar extremes where you've looked like the best team in baseball and the worst team in baseball. Can you just, for God's sakes, find somewhere in the middle where you can still be a very good baseball team and get some confidence back so you're not, burying yourselves in the standings by the time June rolls around?
Yeah, and God, that's the biggest thing. Like, this should be a series where you should get that confidence back. And I believe after that do they host the Texas Rangers or are they down in Texas? I'm not exactly sure on that one, but that's a team that
they host.
Okay. So, but still,
yes, they host the Rangers next weekend.
Perfect. So that I believe kicks off on Friday and then goes through Sunday, but that's a lineup where almost opposite of what we're talking about with the Nationals. you have a Corey Seager, you have a Dolis Garcia, you have some bigger name guys that despite being I think right now they're even at 500. I think they're 24-24. They're a team that can spice it up, and that they're looking to do kind of the same thing of what the Twins are dealing with here, which is get back right on track. And this Washington series, it needs to be a confidence booster. This needs to be a get right series. So 2 of 3, come back home, get right. That's the biggest thing here. Get 2 of 3 from the Nationals.
I love it. Hey, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is Score North Extra Innings here on the Score North YouTube channel. We're almost to 3,000 subscribers, so appreciate you guys. You stuck with us through the first, again, that awkward bookend start. You stuck with us. You were sticking with us, obviously, in the second start. Now we're in the third act, where we're trying to figure out if the Twins, again, are one of the better teams in baseball or one of the worst teams in baseball. But regardless, we'll be here on Score North Extra Innings. I believe a full Twin show. I might try to join from the lovely Cleveland airport tomorrow morning for the show. We'll work on some logistics there. Hopefully we can work that out. But regardless, appreciate you guys. Trevor Plouffe will join us on Tuesday. This is Score North Extra Innings. That's AJ Fredrickson. I'm Declan Goff. We'll be talking at you next week.